Hello and welcome to Town Meeting TV's coverage of Town Meeting Day 2026. My name is Debbie Ingram. This program is part of a series of candidate forums hosted by Town Meeting TV in advance of the Town Meeting Day election, which is on Tuesday, March 3rd of this year. These forums are made possible by Town Meeting TV's generous underwriting partners. You can find all of our forums at cctv.org/TMD2026 or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel, where auto-generated captions are available. If you're tuning in on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button to stay tuned in to local democracy the entire election season. Now, on our program today, we will hear from two candidates running for the 6-person Winooski School Board, and both of them are unopposed. These candidates are Nicole Mace, running for a 3-year term, and Katie Livermore, who is running for the last year of an unexpired term that she was appointed to last fall. Now, we've prepared a list of questions for each of you, and you'll have 90 seconds to answer each question. There really probably won't be much need for rebuttals since we don't have any opposition candidates for you this evening. Now, if you're tuning in live at home, we also welcome your questions at 802-862-3966. If you call in, we will do our best to prioritize your question, though we will screen calls to ensure questions are not repeated. We ask that you share your name and the town you live in, and that your question be directed at both the candidates. Now, you can also submit questions for future forums online at cctv.org/TMD2026. So we'll get started with 1-minute opening statements, and Nicole, I think we'll start with you.
Okay, sounds
so
good.
You're going to tell us why you're running again and what great things you're going to do for the Winooski School Board.
Okay. Thanks, Debbie. So I'm running for the second term, so just wrapping up my first term, and wanted to run again because I believe strongly in the need for a strong school district, and I believe that the background and skills that I have to bring to the school board table can help contribute to that. I think I've been involved in our schools since I moved to Winooski in 2009. I have a high school student right now, so I've been involved in various different aspects of the district. I think the district has accomplished a lot in a very short period of time, from building a brand new facility to recently being told we're no longer on the list of in need of comprehensive support from the state. So the work is extraordinary, and whatever I can do to keep that momentum going for the benefit of our kids and our families, I'd like to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Katie, please tell us why you're running.
Thank you. Yeah, I put my name in the hat to be appointed when there was an opening last fall. I've been on the board since last fall because, for similar reasons, I deeply value our school district, and I wanted to do my part to ensure its continued success. And a little bit about me, since I'm probably new to folks in Winooski, is my professional background is as a nurse, and one of the really important roles of a board member is to be a liaison between the owners of the Winooski district, which are the Winooski voters, and the administrators at the school who are running operations. And that's a big part of a nurse, as well as being a liaison between patients and the care team. I also have 2 kids in elementary school, so I'm deeply invested in having a strong public education experience for them, and I'm looking forward to continue supporting our district and the great work that we're doing.
Great. Well, thank you both for that. So we have some prepared questions for you, and you'll have 90 seconds to answer each one. So I'll try to kind of go back and forth, and so then Katie will start this one with you. And this is about school priorities and the strategic plan. How do you understand the school district's strategic plan and priorities, and how will you use your seat on the board to support this direction?
When I hear strategic plan, I think of our board's end statement, So we are a policy governance board, which means that we don't have a mission and vision statement like you might be more used to. That's a bit more common. It's a governance structure where you write policy and you adopt policy, and that directs what the long-term vision and goals of the district are. And so our end statement is what we hope to achieve. And it talks about that we want all students to graduate from Winooski School District college and career ready at a cost that is supported by Winooski residents. And so that is our strategic plan. And I think the school has been doing an excellent job of making progress towards that goal. Every year there's been improvement in closing the gap in areas where we might not be quite there. And like Nicole mentioned, actually it was really big news that we got today that was really exciting, which is for the first time, we were just chatting about since when, for the first time in recent history, all of our schools are off the Comprehensive Support Improvement Plan list. So that is a big milestone for the school as well.
Great, terrific. All right, thank you. So, Nicole, how would you answer?
Yeah,
that
just to build off of that, we've had this end statement since I think 2013. It's been about 13 years. And when I joined the board a few years ago, we really started the process of unpacking. So what do these words mean, right? So they sound good. How do we know when students are college and career ready? How do we know that they're going to lead healthy, productive, and successful lives? Like, what should we be looking for? And so the board has spent some time working with the administration on some what we call indicators of success within each of those areas that we monitor as a board on a monthly basis. So the superintendent, part of the policy governance framework, provides a report to the board. And we've really started to structure that report around data that is aligned with our indicators of compliance towards our end statement. And so I've been really pleased to see us bringing that kind of structure and focus to bringing the end statement really to have some powerful meaning for the district. In terms of some of the priorities we have in the future, we have an extraordinary student body who has I think really embraced their role as, in using their voice to influence the direction of the district. And so one of the things we're working on this year is to establish a seat for a student member on our school board. So we've made that a priority for our work over the coming months.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, let's move to money, which is often voters, extremely important issue to voters. So the school budget for the Winooski that has been announced is $34 million for this year. Now, do you support this number, and how would you address the challenges facing the state education fund and the impact on Winooski schools and taxpayers? And so, Nicole, we'll start with you this time.
Okay. I definitely support this year's school budget. Robert and I were presenting here a few weeks ago, detailing some of the investments that we're going to make through this budget. I think what I feel good about with the budget process, a few things. One, we involved students as our budget buddies this year, which was really, I think, informative for both the board and our students. We also had a balance, we balanced both investments and compromises in order to try to maintain a budget increase that would keep our property taxes either level or going down. Fortunately, we saw an increase in our long-term weighted student count. So despite a 4% increase in spending, we're projecting a 1 cent decrease in our property tax rate. We know Winooski is maybe somewhat unique in that way. Not all districts are seeing an increase in their enrollment. In terms of the state's education fund, I think we're going to get to that in a little bit on school funding and reform. But I think something that I've brought to our budgeting process is an understanding that we are part of the education fund. The decisions that we make impact the health of the fund. And so even if we could have spent some more and still seen our taxes level, really focusing on responsible budgeting that meets the needs of our district, but also has an eye toward the future in terms of, there's a lot of uncertainty. I feel good about the process and our mindfulness of how we fit within the state as a whole.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So, Katie.
I also enthusiastically support the budget that we landed on. I'm really proud of the budget that we landed on. This was a big learning experience for me. It was my first budget cycle, and I started pretty much, I think my first meeting was like the start of budget season. So I've been learning a lot. I still have a lot to learn, I'll be the first to tell you. But I was really impressed by the thoroughness of the process and the care that the administrators put into developing a very responsible budget that it's really hard to prioritize an excellent educational experience for students and also be fiscally responsible because doing it takes resources. So I'm really impressed with all the creative ways that they moved things around and switched programming and solved to be able to maintain an excellent educational experience without a drastic increase. And so, like Nicole said, to be able to decrease the homestead tax rate while maintaining the most important services, I'm really proud of. And I think that is, Nicole touched on, we're of the same mind there that, and I learned a lot from Nicole through this last process. It's tough because you only have control over your district, but we are all connected in Vermont. So I feel that we have been really responsible, and that's all we can do as a board. So fully supportive of the budget that we landed on.
Okay, thank you. Well, continuing along the same vein of talking about funding, this would be about school funding and legislative reform. The governor and the Vermont legislature are responding to frustrations about high taxes and school spending and have made steps to cut costs through consolidating districts and capping spending. What do you think the folks in Montpelier need to hear from local communities, such as Winooski, regarding these efforts? So, Katie, we'll let you go first.
Yeah, that's a big question to respond to in 90 seconds. One of the first things I'll say is when we start our budget process, what we start with is our end statement, because that is supposed to be what's guiding us. And so I guess that is one thing that I would say to the decision makers in Montpelier is please keep in mind, please let the anchor be the incredible importance of having a strong public education system and the impact that it has on our future and our students. It's something that benefits the entire state, regardless of if you have kids in the education system or not. It is an investment in our future. So I hope that is the anchor to everything that they do. And I think as a board and community, and I guess I should speak for myself in this moment, ask that they do things thoughtfully and that they do leave time for input. It has felt to me, I will speak personally, that the process has been, there's an element of that it's rushed. There's a lot of rhetoric around the urgency, we have to do this now. And I'm very open to, I think our community has been open to that there needs to be adjustments made and we need to be willing to change. But I think we just ask that it's done thoughtfully and with data supporting the decisions that are made.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, how would you answer the question?
So in my prior professional life, I worked with the Vermont School Boards Association for almost a decade, and conversations about school funding and governance were front and center then, as they are now. So I think the state has for a long time really grappled with how to contend with declining enrollment in our public schools, infrastructure needs that have not been addressed, and a funding system that puts a lot of pressure on the property tax. And it's complicated. And I think I believe that there needs to be steps taken to address the fact that we're spending $2.5 billion on 77,000 students. That's a significant investment that Vermonters are making. And we have inequitable outcomes across districts. So But what I agree with Katie, I think the politicization of the process has not served Vermonters well. And so I think it needs to be treated as the serious policy discussion that it is. I've seen solutions agreed to at the last minute that end up being not great and undone, and so we sort of just keep kicking the can down the road on a hard conversation that we need to have. It needs to be informed with data, and it needs to be informed with local perspective. And so we just really rely on conversations and connections with our representatives and senators to bring that message forward.
Okay, yes, you and I saw a lot of each other
We did.
back in the day when I was on the education committee.
That's
in
right.
the Senate. Yes, that's right. All right, well, let's switch gears then and talk a little bit about the political climate that we are all operating in, set by the federal government. So given the current administration's efforts to cut off funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, to restrict immigration, and to remove safeguards for transgender people, what does the school district need to do to protect the community and individual civil rights? So, Nicole, we'll let you start that one.
Well, it's a terrible political climate, right? We have community members who live in fear, and that's not okay. I do think that the school district has done a lot through the sanctuary schools policy, through ensuring our community members have access to resources, information about their rights, support for one another. I feel like the district has really done everything within its sphere of influence to protect community and individual civil rights. We can't do that alone. And so I think I would like to see more districts engage in the kinds of efforts that we've seen in Winooski, to join. Sometimes it feels like we're out there on our own, and I know we have a lot of supporters, a lot of admirers, but I think what the last year has shown, if we don't stand together, we will lose a lot. And so I'm grateful for the efforts of our superintendent, for the incredible devotion that our staff have to our students and families, and it's still not enough.
Okay, thank you for that. Katie, how would you answer that?
Yes, I think I am really grateful for the leadership that our superintendent has shown in being really proactive about all of this. And he is proactive with a lot of substance. It's not just statements that are made, which it is important to start by acknowledging how intense things are and how unpredictable, and there's a lot of violence happening towards community members, including in Winooski. Like Nicole said, the sanctuary school policy to me is a really excellent example of proactive leadership and substantive policy that the board passed. That was before I was on the board, but I'm really supportive of that policy. And it does things like from logistics of just making clear that they won't share information that they're not required to share, which helps keep our students safe, to also that staff will be all trained and knowing what to do. And that provides an element of psychological safety for everybody. It doesn't, it's not perfect, but that everyone's just more prepared, and students know that the administration cares and has a plan, and that makes a big difference. Winooski has a long history of being really proactive with these things. Going back to in 2020, there was actually a group of students that got together and made requests or demands, maybe they would have called them demands.
Call them demands.
Made some demands about what they would like to see to be more proactive about these types of topics, and Winooski did respond to that. And one of the things that we have is now all the elementary students have an ethnic studies course, which my daughter loves. And one of the things she came home and told me is, Mom, we talked about how everyone belongs here and everyone's voice matters. And that's a message I'm really proud that we're communicating with our students, and I think everyone could use that message. So those are some examples of how the district has been proactive in addressing that.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about challenges, local challenges. What is the biggest challenge facing Winooski schools, and how would you use your seat on the school board to address this issue, this challenge? So, Katie, I'll let you start this one.
So maybe I'm not going to perfectly answer your question because, in my opinion, it's related to the last question. I would say that the greatest challenges that our district are facing are not necessarily internal. We do have a lot of unique needs in our district, which, you know, they require creative solutions and excellent educators, but we have that, and we have data to show that we are serving students well. One specific challenge that I will highlight that's related to a couple of other things that we've discussed is that schools are increasingly asked to do more and more than just provide education. And of course, students are people and they need to have their needs met to be able to learn. And so we understand that. But when schools are asked to provide mental health services and be providing make sure students have all their meals and have access to health care and the clothes that they need. I'm really proud that our district does all those things, but it's difficult to be expected to do that without any support from any other sources and financial pressure to not be increasing the budget at all when all those things do require resources. So that is when the school has embraced providing that for our students and done it really well, but it is challenging to be expected to do more and more and more as an educational institution without necessarily being given resources to do that.
Okay, thank you. And Nicole, how would you address that?
So I agree with a lot of what Katie had to say. I think, you know, in addition to the sort of community fear and anxiety that we have, that I do think we do a pretty good job of, we cannot counteract that. And it, you know, it can have an impact on student attendance, on families engaging. So, you know, I think we need to monitor certainly what happens in terms of, you know, if there's increased immigration enforcement activity in our community, what impact that would have on our students. I do feel like we are prepared, but we, you know, the impact would be significant. I think the thing that I would note is the fiscal uncertainty that exists as part of this broader discussion around education reform. So if the state moves forward, and you can't, I'm sure, can't imagine this happening, addressing funding, for example, and not governance. We've done some modeling, and Winooski school districts, because of our size, would have a really hard time continuing to operate a program the way we do right now if the funding is restricted and we don't have access to a larger district that has scale, right? And so, and we've had some informal conversations with our neighbors. They all have scale, right? We're the smallest district in the county. And so if mergers or governance changes become voluntary, but the funding is take it or leave it, right? I have some concerns about what impacts that would have on Winooski.
Okay, makes sense. All right, thank you both. So let's move on to measuring success. How do you think the district should measure the success of administrators, teachers, and students? Nicole, you want to start us off?
Sure. I think this gets back to the indicators of compliance I was talking about earlier, which sounds terrible, indicators of compliance, but it's really indicators of success, right? And so we want to look at, and I think the other thing to note as a policy governance board is we really only evaluate the superintendent. We don't evaluate our principal, you know, that he is our employee, and then he is responsible for evaluating the success of all the employees. But we do expect to see evidence that we're making progress in terms of graduation rates, in terms of what's happening after students graduate. We look at results from things like the Youth Risk Behavior Survey to understand, do our students feel a sense of belonging? And if we start to see some patterns that we have concerns about, we dig in. And so I think how the board measures success really is through the lens of the end statement, and those indicators of compliance/success are really being used to by the administrative team to have conversations, within their teams around how is what we're doing contributing to movement in these areas that the board cares about.
Right, okay. And Katie, how would you answer that?
Yeah, so that is the system that our board uses, and the challenge to that system is there is a learning curve to it, and I'm sympathetic to how, as very recently being just a member of the public myself, it's not necessarily intuitive. The terminology can be confusing, as Nicole just mentioned. So that is the challenge to it, but once you are over that learning curve, once the board is all on the same page of what you're doing, it is a very proven method of governance as far as it being successful and everyone staying on the same page and it being very clear in what you're looking for and how you're measuring that. So I'm kind of gonna it's gonna be hard not to restate it, but basically we have an end statement and then it all goes from the end statement. So there's just tiers from there, and the superintendent gives us reports, and that helps provide evidence to how, if we're meeting the end statement or not. And it is once you know the system, it's a very clear way. So everyone understands what we're looking for and if it's happening or not.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So this will probably be our last question, but we'll move to language access, which is something that affects probably the Winooski School District more than a lot of other districts in Vermont. So how does the Winooski School District meet the needs of students and families whose primary language is not English? Katie, you want to start with that?
Yes. We have a team of multilingual liaisons, and they work with all of the major languages at our school with the students and with the families, which that is a really important connection as well. So in practice, that looks like when communication goes out to families, it goes through the liaisons first and they translate it, including some families need a read message that gets sent out to them. And a really nice part about that system is they also have a shared culture with the families that they're communicating with, because there is a cultural element to how you communicate in addition to just saying the right words. And that's a system that has been very successful with our population. And from everything I hear, that I'm not a person who receives that service, but it's done really well and thoughtfully, including something like parent-teacher conferences. It's quite the undertaking to schedule, but everyone has access to somebody who they already have a relationship with in the meeting with them to make sure that they understand what's going on at the school and with their student. So that is kind of an overview of the system that Winooski uses.
Okay, all right, thank you. That was helpful. So Nicole, how would you address that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Katie nailed it. It's more than using Google Translate, right? So we all have pocket translators, right? But what our liaisons do is really, speaking of liaisons, sort of broker both the language barriers, but also some of the cultural barriers associated with navigating the U.S. public education system, which is not an easy thing to do, even if English is your first language, right? And so yeah, I think we, in addition to having these dedicated roles where people have built relationships, they understand the needs of our families. We also have a lot of, tools that we use to put our resources easily translated into the hands of family members. So what I love this year, we have our budget flyer that gets mailed out to every household in Winooski. I think this was the first year we had a QR code where a student or a family member, community member could take a picture and then have access to 6 or 7 different versions translated in our major languages. And so that's a lot of work, but I do think it has meant we have families that are increasingly getting more and more engaged in the district because they feel like they have the tools to navigate it and advocate for their students. So
Great. Well, thank you both so much
Yeah.
for answering all these questions and giving the voters a sense of who you are and how you'll be on the school board if you were returned. And thank you for watching tonight, for tuning in to our ongoing coverage of local candidates, budgets, and ballot items on Town Meeting TV. You can find this and many more forums at cctv.org/TMD2026 or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. And don't forget to cast your ballot on Town Meeting Day or before. You can go and vote now, I think, actually, but it's the Election Day is actually March 3rd. And then that night, be sure and tune in to Town Meeting TV's results recap show, which will start live at 7 p.m. and I'll be here for that. So contact your local clerk to find out how to obtain a ballot and to register to vote, which you can do the same day in Vermont. And thank you very much for watching and for sharing Town Meeting TV.